Hi, I'm agronomist Greg Phillips, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Um, Channel has, I think this is 28 videos so far. I have videos on irrigation, weed disease, chemical control, sprayer calibration, fungal identification, fungus control, etc., so on and so forth. This one is about pre-emergent herbicides, and I know some of my warm season grass subscribers have been wanting me to give a take on pre-emergent herbicides. Now, you'll also see these in the store as weed preventer. Okay, when you go to the hardware store, you'll see weed preventer, and I think they do that distinguishing so a homeowner, maybe someone that's not familiar, doesn't get confused. They see that it is prevention of weeds, and that's what we're talking about. When we say that, pre-emergent means before it emerges, that you can see it. Okay, now how do these work? And that's why I said before you can see it, at least the weed. When you put a pre-emergent or a weed preventer down, it goes out and it gets into the soil surface. These products pretty much stay right at the soil surface. Okay, so they will stay there depending on the product anywhere from 3 to 6 months, some of them as long as a year, and they will prevent weeds. Okay, so what happens is you have the seed, and the first, because it's a not mature, that first root comes out, hits that herbicide, and then kills it. That's how it doesn't harm your grass, because your grass is mature, it can take it. It's the smaller, newly germinated seed that gets killed. Okay, tell you what you're up against in pre-emergent herbicides. Aaron, weed control in general. And this really stuck with me when a college professor told me this. People have problem with crabgrass and goosegrass. A crabgrass seed can stay dormant into the ground for 75 years before it germinates. I think I did the math. That's 1948, I think. So that's how long a seed that was produced by a crabgrass plant in 1948 could have grown in 2023. So you have a seed bank there that you are dealing with. And so just to kind of give you an idea of what you're dealing with. So anyway, so that's how these work, and that's how they control weeds. The other type is a post-emergent, or you'll sometimes hear weed and feed. That's a different thing. That's after you see the seed, or pardon me, you see the plant. That's post-emergent herbicide. Now, the amount of control you get out of most of these weed preventers, pre-emergent herbicides, is driven by how much you put out. On all of these, please read the label and follow the label. I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance here to steer you in some directions and do some things that you might want to consider. Anything you put out, read the label. I've said this in other videos. You lose grass. It's not like painting a wall. You don't like the color of the wall, so you go out to the hardware store, take half hour to go there, get your paint, bring it back, paint the wall. 3 hours later, done. You lose grass. It's gone for minimum 2 weeks, probably a month or 2 or 3. So anyway, read the label so you know what you're up to. So I'm just giving you some guidance, just to think, food for thought, educate you a little bit these things, and maybe steer you in some directions you might want to try. So anyway, so the control on some of these, and I'll kind of alleviate that or talk about that as we go through some of these options. Depends on how much you put out, and some of them it's just a flat rate. This is how much it's going to control, and there you go. Generally, what I have done, particularly you cool season grass guys, and I throw warm season grasses in here too, but generally you're better off with split applications, because you're controlling broadleaf weeds in essentially the spring, and you're controlling grassy weeds in the summer. So you want an early season application, okay, to control your spring weeds, and then I just did an aerification video. If you aerify in the spring, May, whatever, put out your second pre-emergent application then, and that will help you with your grassy weeds going through clear into the fall. Okay, I'm going to tell you one's not going to be enough generally. That's going to give you the control that you want. Some herbicides say that one application is going to give you 4 months. Well, if you apply it in February, I'll get to a little bit more about this in a second, but you're only going to get it till about June. So you're going to need probably a second application in June to get you through the summer. All right. One thing about pre-emergent herbicides a lot of folks don't realize, and Barricade, well, I'll go through a little bit later. They actually came out, I think, let's see, I think that's a Syngenta product if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, years ago they came out with a guarantee. If you applied it, I think it's sometime in November, it will control you through the next season. The reason why they said that, most of these pre-emergent herbicides do not break down in cold weather. They need warmth. It's usually biological activity and usually the biological activity in the soil that breaks them down. So there's no big critical problem with putting it. It's the only thing that will drive you by putting them out too early in general is going to be frozen ground. You can't put them on frozen ground. You've got to work them in the soil. Most of these you're going to have to irrigate at least a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch after you put them out. And I'm talking soon after you put them out. I've seen some labels, you can say within 24 hours, but you really just put them out right before it's going to rain or have the ability to irrigate your yard. And a lot of you don't have the ability to irrigate a 1/4 inch. That's actually a modest amount of water, but or a 1/2 inch as much as. But radar, check your radar. Rain's coming in, go out, put it out. No muss, no fuss. Just be ready and don't be in a hurry. Just have everything calibrated, ready to go, and wait for a good rain. So anyway, but you can put them out early, and they won't go anywhere. They'll stay in there. They'll stay there, and you'll be ready for the next season. So anyway, there again, read the label. I'll go through a few of these. Scott's with Halts is one that folks are using, homeowners are using quite a bit. The reason why it's a pendimethalin product. Okay, that's the active ingredient of it. The nice thing about that is it can be used on just about any grass anywhere, and that's probably why Scotch uses it. It is a good pre-emergent herbicide. It's got a very broad spectrum of control. Now, one thing I didn't tell you. Herbicides are put in groups. And this is one of the reasons why I'm going through all these herbicides. Each group has its own mode of action. So, the pendimethalin product is a group 3. That's that mode of action. I'm not going to get too much into the mode of action. This video is going to be long enough anyway. All you need to know is a group 3 herbicide. Okay? Barricade, protamine product. Another herbicide that I actually used on my Bermuda grass when I was down in North Carolina. Group 3. So, the Scott's Halts and the Barricade product are both group 3. They have the same mode of action on your weeds. So one thing you can get, and I know this is why the Southern guys been on me. What do you think about pre-emergent herbicides? What you may be getting is resistance. And if you're using the same pre-emergent herbicide over and over and the same group, it actually might be a different pre-emergent herbicide. But if it's in the same group, you ain't doing yourself no good as far as preventing you from getting weed resistance to that particular herbicide. So you got to mix and match. Okay? Don't necessarily have, and I'll get to a little bit more in a second, don't necessarily have to mix and match between a pre-emergent and another pre-emergent, but you may have to throw a post-emergent in there But you don't want to do that too much. That, or you're kind of wasting your time with the pre-emergent, right? So you have to mix these up. So Scott's Halts and the Barricade I just went over are group 3. Another one, Dimension, have used it. Dimension is a little different because it actually has post-emergent activity. The Barricade product and the Scott's Halts product has no post-emergent activity, meaning when the grass, in this case grass, it's post-emergent on crabgrass, has emerged and you can see it. Dimension as much as a 5-tiller stage. Go into my weed, well, we're in weed control, I'll do it. I don't have one with me. But anyway, you'll see a branch off of a crabgrass, and this is 1-tiller, 2-tiller, 3-tiller, and there'll be leaves on here. Dimension label, you can go as much as a 5-tiller if you use a surfactant with it. But 5th tiller, it's going to be hard. You need to get it fairly early. That's why I used the Dimension product, which is a diclopyr, is the active ingredient. I generally used it right after Aerifide in June and liked it pretty well. So anyway, now the thing about Barricade is it does have a yellow coloring to it. That's the only problem I had with it. Dimension is clear, so if I'm ever concerned about staining concrete, or maybe somebody's seeing I sprayed a chemical, you should let folks know about when you sprayed a chemical. But the Barricade sometimes has a little orangey look to it. I just letting you know that. As far as the Dimension, it is a group 3. So we've talked about the Scott's Halts, group 3. We've talked about the Barricade, group 3. We're talking about Dimension, group 3. Do you see a pattern? Okay, now, so Dimension has a pretty broad range of what you can use it on as far as grass. And just about all of it. Scott's Halts, Barricade, Dimension, you can use them about any grass. So now I'm getting into not so much a cool season grasses. That's almost what your options are with cool season grasses. Unfortunately, they're all group 3. There's a new herbicide that you can use on warm season grasses. Bermuda, zoysia, centipede, St. Augustine, called Spectacle Flow. It's pricey. A lot of talk about this chemical. Indaziflin is the active ingredient in it. It is a group 29 herbicide. So those of you who've been using the Barricade and Dimension and maybe not getting the results that you've been wanting, or it's getting worse and worse and worse, you may be getting, now we got a different group coming in the Spectacle Flow. So also on the Spectacle Flow, you are getting anywhere from, according to the label, and usually those labels are pretty accurate. Now they are. You're getting 10 to 12 months of control, particularly if you're doing a split application. On the label, it does give you an option for split application. But you get 12 months of control. Let's say you get 10 months out of one. Something to consider, and you're looking at the price. And there is a lot of, I wish they would sell things in a smaller volume. Because one thing that some guys have been doing or thinking about is actually sharing sharing the price and sharing it with their neighbors, or, letting their neighbor take a third of it. That's the other bad thing about some of these products too. And I'll classify this as fungicides and anything else. They're in these huge 2.5-gallon containers, and the homeowner would never use that over 5 years. I'm not saying that's the case with this particular herbicide, but you get my drift. That they're in such large containers, it would probably go bad on the shelf before you really used it all if you could use it according to the label. So that's one idea that folks are doing, and that is neighbors getting together and you'll take a third, I'll take a third, you take a third. If you do something like that, and if you put it in a different container, please mark that container and make a copy of the label and stick it to that container if you do that. Okay, so that way you know what it is, you know how to use it. If you split it up, or keep it with your buddy, your neighbor, and let him keep it in the original container. That would probably be ideal. I'm not too big on guys taking a herbicide, anything, any pesticide, putting in a different label, or pardon me, different container than what it already came in. It's just not a good idea. And I've done it, and then a week or two later, going, what is that? Don't keep track of it. I've done it, been guilty of it, and I'm been actually pretty good at not doing it again. So anyway, spectacle flow. It's group 29. Now, there again, you can get 10 to 12 months. And one of the points I was making is, yes, it might be pricey, but to get 10 or 12 months out of control out of a barricade dimension or the Haltz product, how many times are you going to have to apply it to get 10 months of control? Probably minimum 2 or 3. So you may get one, and this is one of the things that I did. I actually wrote an article for Golf Course News years ago about fungicide control and how you can save money by considering how much you're putting, what's the rate and your length of control, and how much you paid for it. I'll go through this real quick. I don't want to make this video too long, but I want to understand about the price of things. If I had a fungicide, for example, that only controlled fungus for 7 days, and it cost me $1, and I had fungicide B that cost $2.50. Now I'm thinking, wow, it's only $1. I'll get it. Well, I'm only getting 7 days of control out of that. With the $2.50, I'm getting 28 days of control out of that chemical with $2.50. The one that's costing me $1 is costing me $4 to get 28 days of control. You see what I'm saying? So I'm saving 50 cents by going to a more expensive product. So I don't know what you're paying for it. I have no idea. It may vary per area. It may vary per salesman. I have no clue. But just keep that in mind. Look, when you look at something pricey, just think, okay, well, how much did it cost me last year? And maybe that starts to balance things out. Maybe. Just consider that whenever you're doing budgets, because that's one of the exercises we do as a golf course superintendent is, okay, how much is it going to cost me to get to this goal? And that's what we're doing with our integrated pest management program, our agronomic plans we put together for golf courses. Just be aware of that kind of thing. Okay? Okay. Last, I guess, pre-emergent you could use on just about any grass. Sometimes it's mixed, but is a benefit. Sometimes it's called Baylan. It's kind of, there's a lot of states that, depending on, I think Anderson's has one that can be sold just about anywhere. Some of the granular you have in Baylan can't be sold in some states, and some, anyway, it's kind of weird. The Anderson product usually offers it in a granular. It's sometimes mixed with a Trifulan as well. Now, the reason why I put those two together is, guess what? That's right, group 3. So, but, you know, I've talked about this, and I'm talking to most of my cool season guys here, because your options are limited. Because your pressure, your weed pressure, isn't nearly as bad in our neck of the woods, don't sweat this too much. I'm just educating you on, you know, why your pre-emergent may not be working. Now, when you mix these two together, like the Baylan and the Trifulan, you get a little bit more action. If you mix things up like I did with the barricade and the diclofenac dimension, you get a little bit more benefit. But they're all basically the same as far as their inhibition. So the reason why I'm trying to comfort you a little bit, don't sweat this overly. It's not like it's not going to work ever. But if you're seeing limited resistance, go ahead and do that split application. I encourage you to do it anyway. That may help. Different chemicals may help. Just be aware that they're in the same group and their mode of action is nearly the same.
Let's talk about another one. And back to warm season grass, folks. Princep, which is a Syngenta product. And you will see active ingredient simazine. You will see this in a multitude of, there's a lot of this out there. The Syngenta one, Princep, is the one label that I really reviewed and looked at because I trust Syngenta with their stuff. Not that I don't trust anybody else, it's just their label's a lot more descriptive. So now, simazine is a group 5 herbicide. So we've got all these 3s. We've got spectral flow at group 29, and now we have simazine, which is a group 5. So we've got, at least to you warm season guys, we've got 3 in the box. Now, simazine can be used on Bermuda, St. Augustine, centipede, and zoysia. Read the label. I've not used simazine. That's why I'm kind of being a little careful on simazine. Not saying it's a bad product, I just ain't used it. And hadn't used spectral flow too because it's a fairly new product. May consider them. I'll tell you what I do here in a minute. So anyway, you get a little bit of post-emergent activity out of simazine too on poania. So if you guys have an issue with poania, it also whack cool season grasses. So if you have a neighbor that has warm season, or pardon me, cool season grasses, be real careful, because if you get some drift out of that, you can whack his yard pretty good with it. So just be aware of that. That's why I'm kind of cautious on simazine. I just, be cautious. So anyway, now, what did I do? Here's basically what I did, and what I always did, and actually what I was taught when I was in college. What we ended up doing in Bermuda grass, warm season grasses, is that we went out with a dormant. It's going to freak the cool season guys out, but yes, you can do this on warm season grasses. I do it on my yard. Go out with a post-emergent herbicide, Roundup, in dormancy, and that'll clean you up. Roundup is a group 9. So we've got most of them a group 3, one of them group 29, another group 5. Now we're throwing a post-emergent herbicide out there, a group 9. At least those are the tools in our box. So I was using Roundup on fairways, tees, obviously not greens because I had bent grass. And then coming in with the barricade early in the year, because it's cheaper, it generally was, at least then, cheaper per acre. The cost per acre was cheap. And then coming in after aerification with dimension, with a surfactant in case I had anything germinating. Surfactant's cheap. I always throw that surfactant in there. And that kept me clean. And just that program alone, I've got a group 2 and a group 9, or pardon me, group 3 and a group 9 out. So I've got 2 different ones. You cool season grass guys, you may have to use some post-emergent herbicides, because really the only options that you have. And if anybody knows any more in the comments, there's something new out there, and I've done a lot of research on this for this video. I know a lot, but I want to come in and I want to be sure I'm giving you the best information, the latest information. I'm reading the labels and everything else. But hey, if somebody else knows a cool season grass pre-emergent, let me know. This video, I should have said this on the outset, the tenacities, these ones that only give you like 3 to 6 weeks of, I call them cedar pre-emergents. Some of these post-emergent herbicides or pre-emergent herbicides coming out with, it has very short-term control, and quite remarkable because you can actually seed into them, and it's really cool. I don't know necessarily if it's needed, but it is they're again a tool in the box. Whenever I've seeded anything, I've never really fretted about weeds coming up. It just seems like yes, I have them maybe here and there, and then maybe I've used wheat straw and I've taken good practices, and I've never had too much trouble with my reclamation with a whole lot of weeds coming up. I just never have. So anyway, hopefully it's not too much to throw at you. Now, as far as control of weeds, field trip. Steak one. Okay, take two on this. It's a continuity issue. Had technical glitch with the first run of this. As I said in my last video, I have not used a pre-emergent herbicide in 3 years. Now, some of you may think, well, how the devil are we going to do that? Now, granted, I have Bermuda grass in West Virginia. And as I said in the video, northern folks don't have nearly the weed pressure as folks in the South do. That's one. But, and a part of that is this. It's selecting the right grass seed. It's getting the right grass here. It is keeping it healthy, okay? So it fills in. If you look underneath your trees right now, it's September. Look underneath your trees and see how much crabgrass you have underneath your trees. It's like I said about the crabgrass seed that can stay there for 75 years before it germinates. It needs sun to germinate. So I mow my yard at 1.5 inches. The shorter you mow your yard, the more sunlight is going to get through, and the more those environmental conditions are going to be there for your weeds to germinate. So if you have a good coverage and a healthy yard with good fertilization, good seed selection, and all of these things start to work together in an integrated pest management program, you can do these things. It's how I've gotten by with spending less than, just around $100 so far on my yard this year. I've done a Roundup application, which is cheap as the dickens. I've done 2 fertilizer apps, and I put out some lime. That's it. So anyway, that's why I wanted to do with this channel. I want to kind of educate you to get you there. I have a unique situation here in West Virginia. This Yukon Bermuda grass is the most cold tolerant Bermuda grass that there is, and it can take it. But, back to the seed selection thing. That's how critical it is. So anyway, hope this video helps. Please subscribe. You'll get more videos on, as they come up. I try to keep them reasonably current. I try to get this one out as quickly as possible. We've had a lot of technical issues, particularly for the warm season grass guys. Just remember, split applications. You can go out early if you need to on pre-emergent. Late winter application, early spring application, your first one. Second one sometime in July after you verify, if you verify. And for you warm season grass guys, if you want to go out with a pre-emergent in the fall, that's great. But you also have the option, providing that it's dormant. Read the label on Roundup, but it does say on you can do dormant application of Bermuda grass for Roundup. Do a Roundup application and just go ahead and go with an early winter, or probably late winter, and then a very, very early summer application of a pre-emergent. So anyway, hope I gave you the tools in the box. Like and subscribe. It does help the channel a lot. I'm Greg Phillips. Thanks.